What's up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 297 of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, and this is the Hot Tags edition of the week, where I'll be breaking down some of the current events, rumors, news, gossip, bullshit, scuttlebutt, and anything else that went down in the world of professional wrestling over the past couple of days. First things first, how you all doing tonight? Make sure you leave your comments below and tell me what you think about all the topics that we talk about here and my previous question about how you're doing and everything else that you want to point out there. That's where you're going to be keeping the discussion going. So drop those comments below and let me know what you think. And who knows, maybe you'll get picked for the Smark My Words this week or something. But yeah, it's been a while since I talked to you guys. I actually had recorded stuff pretty early last week and pre-recorded a couple different things like the Sporkle quiz and everything. Gave myself a couple of days off. Had a fun time in New York, hanging out with Caroline. You know, if you recognize Caroline from the Fanboys Anonymous podcast and stuff, and we've had her on for the Sexy Superstars tournament and stuff like that. Fantastic time. Really needed that vacation. First vacation I've been on in 12 years. Essentially. So, feeling a lot better when it comes to that, although you can kind of hear my nose is a little bit stuffy, so apparently nothing changes when I come back home. It's still just a little bit stuffy and all that, so blah, you know. But we have a lot of stuff to catch up on, so let's dig right into this here. Speaking of the whole situation with me being in a new, blah, 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 blah. Apparently I have a little bit of rust when it comes to this. Speaking of me being in New York, there was something that went down recently in New York with Chris Jericho. Now, I wasn't there to witness this specifically, but he got into a shouting match with somebody who had said that he was basically just trying to say, like, hey, congrats, man, you know, whatever. And Jericho must have taken it the wrong way, or maybe the guy did something weird or whatever like that. But there was a video posted up on TMZ and such, and it was basically Jericho flipping out at the guy flipping out at Jericho. This seems to be kind of a regular thing. And it's kind of a disappointment when it comes to seeing that Jericho hasn't really changed in that regard over the past couple of years. Because we know that he had a big situation in the past where he had hit somebody and everything. But he later clarified he was in a bad state of mind because like a friend of his that died and stuff. Still doesn't excuse a lot of things. And we still don't know exactly what the other guy did. But it is always something negative to hear these kind of things because, you know, it's not going to be good for anybody. It's not good for WWE. It's not good for Chris Jericho. That's just how the situation works, you know? And nothing really has come out of that as far as, like, negative repercussions that I'm aware of at the very least. So it's been a few days, and I don't think that it's going to be too big of a story. So that's pretty good. But nonetheless, it's something that's, like, juicy gossip kind of stuff. So I figured we'd bring it up here because that's what we usually do here. Talk about a couple of different variety of contents as far as, like, you know, gossipy stuff and then the news stuff and speculation and whatever. Gossip has its place. So why not talk about that? And if we're talking about heat and people having arguments and stuff like that, we have to talk a little bit more about Enzo Amore having heat because, man, he's getting his name just dragged through the mud recently. And this is all over the place. I mean, there's a thing about that he has heat from, quote, bringing a series of questionable guests backstage who his friends had broken locker room etiquette by filming themselves backstage. There's stuff about that he was bad-mouthing the business on the phone while simultaneously bragging about all the money that he makes, that he wants to get in the music industry and possibly leave wrestling. Even if he doesn't leave wrestling, it would be like a conflict of interest kind of thing. And then there's this whole thing with this stripper. So if you haven't followed it, I suggest go on the different websites that do the full hardcore news coverage and read, you know, the full breakdown of stuff because it's really funny and really interesting. I'm not going to quote everything and I'm not going to break it all down and stuff, but this stripper, Queen Bee, is what she calls herself. So first off, capital. She said that he was bragging about his verified status on Instagram and how he likes to have people watch him smoke weed and brag that he just has to pay a $2,500 fine, but he makes enough money that's not a problem. He's so rich and he's so famous, but that he doesn't tip well, and he was trying to make it rain with $10 in singles. Yeah, I don't necessarily believe Queen Bee, but at the same time, I can see this potentially being a thing. And not a whole lot of good news for Enzo Amore recently, because he was even on it as a subject for Bring It On the Table. Man, I'm watching all over the place here tonight. Bring It to the Table, episode 6, where they were talking about a bunch of different topics, and they addressed Enzo's heat. JBL even said the odds are completely against Enzo, and he said that The Miz was the only one that really was in a position like Enzo is right now, and what many, many others have been in the past, that actually made something of himself. Everybody else, they just kind of ran out of the locker room and eventually made enough enemies that they got fired or they quit. Enzo's not in a good spot right now in WWE, and it's kind of weird, because you would think that Enzo would be doing pretty well because he seems to sell merchandise and he seems to be popular. And I agree with Corey Graves mentioning that he should be moved over to 205 Live. I think that would be a great, great idea. A little bit more on that later on this week with our main event. A little spoiler. But a lot of interesting topics that they talked about with the Bring It to the Table episode. Enzo Amore being one of them. I'm not going to be shocked if Enzo gets fired at some point this year now, because there's just way too many reports at this point that are kind of saying that, like, nobody really likes him and stuff, and it'll be tough to kind of convince me that his job is super secure, And there's even been speculation that there's going to be another superstar shakeup, and that people can move from NXT to from the main roster to NXT. And that little bit of a demotion could be something maybe that they have Enzo Amore in mind for. I don't know. But a couple other topics that they talked about on that table, not the table for 3, I'll get to that in a minute. The Bring It to the Table was, they brought up the Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss heat. Very glad that they brought that up. And the semi-cancellation of Talking Smack, which goes to show that that's resonated enough that people are upset about that they are paying attention to it. And that's good. I liked Talking Smack. I wanted them to continue to do that. I also loved them pointing out that the commentator said the word structure 64 times in the Punjabi prison match at Battleground, which is just insane. But of course, they did that a little tongue-in-cheek, and they don't really want to say, like, yeah, that is something that we have to do. But we all know that that's the case. I mean, come on. They refuse to say belt. It's always title. And they refuse to say pro wrestler a lot of the times. And they refuse to say a wide variety of words, which is really strange. But I recommend watching that Bring It to the Table if you haven't already. And I do the same when it comes to the Table for 3, WCW versus NWO. Although not as much. There wasn't really too much that they had talked about that wasn't just sort of covered in like the Monday Night Wars and stuff, to a lot more detail in them too. So if you're really, really interested in actual behind the scenes stuff with WCW and NWO and that whole thing, watch those shows instead. Because this was basically just Scott Hall saying like, hey, I'm in a good spot now. And Sean Waltman saying, yo, me too. And DDP going, yeah, you're welcome, guys. And then that's kind of it. But it's still something to put in the background. That's what I did. Did that while I was, setting myself up and writing out the hot tags and stuff. So, if you got 20 minutes and you want to check it out, go ahead and do it. If you only have to pick between the two, though, Bring It to the Table is definitely the one to go with. And if you don't watch that one, then I don't know, fuck you. But speaking of cutting things, we're going to use that as a transition here. If we are talking about Table for 3 and Bring It to the Table, let's talk about some other things on the WWE Network that are essentially cut for budget concerns. There are no plans, supposedly, for the United Kingdom division, which is really not surprising to too much of an extent, but very disappointing to hear, because we saw this push for the UK division, and they brought in 16 guys, if I remember correctly. I don't think it was 32. I think it was 16. And not many of them have popped up ever since. We got Tyler Bate, we got Pete Dunne, we got Mark Andrews, and Wolfgang. And Trent Seven. I don't remember seeing anybody else from that. And which is kind of surprising because I thought some of them were almost guaranteed contracts. The dude that trained with Finn Balor, Devin something, I think was his name. And then there's like Sam Gradwell and, there's a group of people and they've done nothing with them. This has been months and months and months and we haven't seen any kind of traction at all. There hasn't been the addition of the UK show that we were told before was going to happen. There hasn't been really much of a push for them on NXT. Although there's been a little bit, and we saw that match between Dunn and Bate at TakeOver... what was it? TakeOver... Not Houston. Houston's the one that's coming up. What the hell was the last one? Orlando? No, that doesn't sound right. I don't know. Whatever it was. That TakeOver was the last one that we had seen pretty much anything of the UK division, which is really disappointing. I don't really like all the guys all that much, and I would be totally fine with them just kind of bringing themselves into like NXT and 205 Live and such. But I know that some people are really kind of into the idea of the UK division, and I'm sure that that's disappointing to hear. And also, we're not going to get that R-Truth game show, although I didn't really think we were going to get that to begin with. And it doesn't seem like we're going to get Edge and Christian's Season 2. So that sucks, because that was a show that I hated at first, and it really, really grew on me, and I ended up liking it quite a bit. So I was really looking forward to Season 2. And to be fair, I would have checked out an R-Truth game show. Why not? I'm willing to watch anything on the network at least one time. Holy Foley, I don't think I made it through the second episode on that one. I love you, McFoley, but that show was pretty awful. So yeah, no UK division, and possibly because of budget cuts, that seems to be one of the cases. No R-Truth game show, no Edge and Christian Season 2. So it kind of makes you wonder, what are they going to do as far as more content on the WWE Network? Because they can't really just not have more content. And it doesn't seem like we've been getting any of the Stone Cold podcasts or anything. So those are probably the cheapest things to pretty much do. And we haven't gotten them. Maybe they're going to bring them back. Maybe they're going to do more of like the WWE list or the countdown or what would be cheaper stuff like that. Table for 3 is probably relatively cheap. Bringing to the table is probably very cheap. So they could maybe bring that as like a bi-weekly type of thing or something. I don't know. Oh, speaking of bringing to the table, the whole thing of, are there too many wrestling podcasts? I agree. Just not as when it applies to Smark Out Moment. Oh, let's get into one of the big stories of the week. WWE released HoHo Loon and Eva Marie, and for totally different reasons. HoHo Loon was later clarified as him requesting his release because he's got a sickness in the family. I believe it was his mother is sick. I kind of don't remember too much off the top of my hand. My top of my hand. I think with my fingers. The top of my head. I should have written that down, but whoever it was, he has somebody who's sick in his family, and he decided that he wants to, kind of take care of them. Pretty noble cause. And they haven't really been doing jack shit with HoHo Loon to begin with, so it's not like he was like in the middle of the biggest run of his career or something. Eva Marie, we saw the writing on the wall a long time ago with that. She had removed her WWE material on social media all over the place, never referenced anything, was well past her suspension, and no activity at all. They could have brought her back a long time ago. Even if she would have been just a matter of like that she sucked at wrestling, we would have heard something from her. So I got a feeling nobody's going to really miss Loon or Marie. Loon is a guy that hasn't seemed to get too much traction, and a lot of people probably aren't even familiar with who the hell he is, because he's really only been on the Cruiserweight Classic and a couple of episodes of NXT. Even Marie, most people should know, but a lot of people hated her. So I would assume the biggest feathers that'll be rustled when it comes to this are going to be the people that really just like the way that Eva Marie looks, which in that case, follow her Instagram, check out her in bikinis. She's still going to be doing that. Or the people from Total Divas who are going to be missing Eva Marie, but now we're going to get, Alexa Bliss, Nia Jax, and so on and so forth. HoHo Loon, I don't think anybody's really going to be that disappointed, but if they are, then, he's probably going to be wrestling in the independents, so check him out all over the place there. And I have no transition to the next topic, so segue. Let's just talk about Kairi Sane from the Mae Young Classic. Apparently, she has suffered a concussion during her match there, and she is suffering from neck pain. Now, we know that she is advanced pretty far into the tournament, and spoiler alert, when it comes to that stuff, she was pretty much looking like she could have been the potential favorite. And looking at the way that things are turning out, she probably isn't going to necessarily be able to wrestle anymore for the rest of that. There's a possibility that they will, because they haven't filmed her next set of matches and stuff. So maybe they replace her, and if they do, how? That'll be very interesting. We haven't seen that yet with these tournaments. Something like the King of the Ring, they've had instances before where they just give people a bye. But if she would have been maybe like their main person that they wanted to go with, then maybe they kind of switch up the tournament a little bit, because they do have time to edit things around, and they haven't done that bracketology thing yet. That's going to be after SummerSlam, if I remember correctly. So they can switch the brackets up, and they can kind of maybe retape another match if they want to go with a different outcome, or they can do some kind of like a battle royal to see who gets her spot or something. Or she could just be able to compete. You never know. And that's going to be something that's going to be really interesting to kind of keep our eyes on for the next few weeks, because we will eventually be able to see something come out of this, whether it's positive for Kairi Sane or it's kind of a death knell for her in the tournament. And I think, Shayna Baszler, if I remember correctly, was like one of the other favorites and stuff. So I wouldn't have been too shocked if she would have been the favorite going forward anyway. But now with Kairi Sane having this injury, she's pretty much like the main one that I'm saying that we should look out for. Because, are we actually down to the finals? Let me see that. Yeah, wow. Okay. We're down to the finals. It's Shayna Baszler against Kairi Sane. So, that's even spicier, because what do? Shayna Baszler can't win without going up against somebody. And if Kairi Sane is not able to compete, does it go to Toni Storm? Does it go to Mercedes Martinez and they just have a rematch? Or do we go like the Battle Royal route? Or do we have somebody come in and, she goes up against like one of the current champions in the company or something? That'll be very interesting. Even more so than I thought. Wow. Okay. So Kairi Sane, she's the main one to look out for news in the next few weeks or so. Very, very interesting. Unfortunately, we also have another injury to report on, which is Scott Dawson. He has suffered a bicep injury, and the current prognosis says he's going to be out at least 3 to 6 weeks if he doesn't need surgery. But if he does need surgery, he could be out for up to 6 months. This is just, the Revival can't catch a break, can they? Dash Wilder gets an injury right when they start up with the main roster. Now they're starting to get a little bit of something going with the Hardy Boys and with Gallows and Anderson. And bam, another injury. So this, again, it might be a blessing in disguise. It might be one of those things where there's not too much to do with the Revival right now. And for them to just kind of like take a couple weeks off or potentially a couple months off, they'll end up coming back and they'll end up getting like a lot more steam heading into WrestleMania or something like that. That could be potentially good. Or this could just be another thing that makes them go, oh, these guys are a little injury prone. I don't know if we really want to push them and stuff. That is the worst case scenario. Best case scenario, at this point, it seems like 3 to 4 weeks or, the 6 week kind of timetable. But Scott Dawson's injured. Dash Wilder just came back. Doesn't seem like we'll see much of Dash Wilder because they didn't do anything with Scott Dawson when Wilder was gone. So these guys just, they can't seem to get a whole lot of traction on the main roster. And I don't know, maybe they should have gone to SmackDown or something. Maybe that would have been a little bit more beneficial to them as far as luck goes. And finally, our last hot tag. John Cena is going to voice Bumblebee in a new Transformers spinoff. I had a sort of rough start with Transformers in a certain way. This was a series where, as a kid, I liked Transformers, and it wasn't my favorite thing in the world. I had a bunch of Transformers toys. I thought they were really cool. And eventually, when they decided that they were going to be doing a movie, I was thinking to myself, well, you can't really do a movie about that, can you? Because I had seen the animated movie, and this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't like the animated movie. So that to me was just sort of like, oh crap, this is going to be stupid. And then they showed the previews, and it was the whole like, we found something on the moon and stuff, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I eventually ended up going to check it out. Thought that the first movie was great. Real big fan of it. Thinking to myself, man, this is going to be an awesome series. Can't wait for number 2. Soundtrack is amazing, which soundtrack has been amazing for every single one of them. Steve Jablonsky does the score, and it's just awesome. Revenge of the Fallen happens. Awful. But I'm thinking to myself, okay, they doubled down on the stupid humor that I didn't like necessarily in the first movie. They thought that maybe people wanted to see more of that. They'll correct it in the third one. They really didn't. Third one was slightly better in some ways than the second one. Slightly worse in some ways. But I still thought to myself, you know what? When this fourth one started being advertised, what was it called? Age of Extinction. I was thinking, hey, we're going to get, the whole Dinobots, and they've got like possibly a new writing team on board. We'll be able to have a little bit more action, and it won't be mindless action, maybe. And it was the worst one. The fourth Transformers movie is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And it got to a point where I thought to myself, you know what? They're going to do a fifth one, and I'm not going to see it in theaters. Now, I will watch it eventually, I'm sure. And that's going to be one of those pirated kind of things. But I am not paying a dime to see that. And I've heard that it's even worse. So that's the way that things are going. And I don't think I'll be checking out this Bumblebee movie. But the idea of John Cena doing the voice of Bumblebee, I think it's kind of awesome. That's sort of like a brilliant move, because Bumblebee doesn't really have a distinct voice, and John Cena doesn't really either. So it's not like he's going to be like, James Earl Jones doing it or something. But he's got a kind of childish tone to himself, and it's just a voice role. So it's like he doesn't need to emote differently and need to be a better actor necessarily. You need to be a good voice actor in certain roles, but we're not talking some kind of like extended series work where you're like going to be dependent upon to do multiple voices and different things like that. It's not that intricate. It's just him doing however many lines that Bumblebee has. I think it's actually a great move, and it's not only a great move for Transformers. It's a great move for WWE, and it's a great move for John Cena. Cena will be all over the place with Transformers when it comes to that, and he's going to be helping out with the Chinese market a little bit, because that's something that's huge with movies now, and he is very, very pro, working with the Chinese markets and stuff for WWE. They'll do tie-ins. They'll have people from the Transformers series popping up on Monday Night Raw. It's going to be a good thing for everybody involved. The movie's probably going to suck, but at least that's a good thing to go with looking forward. And, wow. Yeah, that's it. That's it for the hot tags this week, everybody. So leave your comments below. Tell me what you think. Tell me what other stories you want me to kind of chime in on, and I will try to do that. And the next time that you're going to be hearing my voice is going to be the IWC Outreach content, all the Rest Hold and Ask Him stuff, which will be posted, I don't know. I mean, I'm recording this right now at like 1:30 in the morning on Tuesday morning. So this will come up in a little bit. And then the whole Rest Hold and everything, I'll probably record that tomorrow night after Talking Smack. We don't have Talking Smack anymore. After 205 Live. So that'll probably be up Wednesday. And then our main event for this week is going to be Fantasy Booking SummerSlam 2017. Well, I'll be telling you guys my card that I would have done if somebody would have given me creative control a couple of months ago. And I want to know what you guys have to say with all that stuff. So just stay tuned. And the best way to be aware of when we post those videos is to be subscribed to the YouTube channel. Just hit that little bell icon and check off that you want the notifications, and you'll get those notifications when those videos are up. And there's also the Facebook and the Twitter that you can get notifications as well. And you can subscribe to the RSS feed on smarkoutmoment.com, because we also have all the website content that isn't on the YouTube stuff. And if you're listening to us on iTunes and Stitcher, that's the best place where you can find all that stuff too. And that's it. So thanks for listening, everybody. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and I'm being counted out.